reason nowadays it's very difficult to involve or engage somebody else in a debate or a discussion is because most of the time when you discuss or debate somebody else, they do not debate with you based on the perspective that they hold on a particular subject, based on their own stand on whatever the subject may be. Most of them, they debate based on the perspective of somebody who they look up to on a particular subject. So when somebody argues with you, they give you the perspective that somebody else that they look up to has and argue based on that person's perspective. So if you cannot help them understand what their perspective means in the current situation, then they tend to look at your argument in terms of you standing for what is against what their mentor is. Or they look at it as if you are against their mentor or the person who they look up to. So if somebody believes that Myles Munroe is the best speaker or the best teacher or the best author, they give you Myles Munroe's perspective and they argue with you based on his perspective, not based on what their stand is on that particular subject. So when they cannot prove their position on the subject, when they cannot explain why that should hold water or that is important in that instant, then they turn on the individual. So they say you cannot be better than Myles Munroe, not because your points are not valid, not because you've disapproved their stand, but because they cannot explain why they have that particular stand. They cannot explain their position, and so they turn on to you against their mentor. You have to prove yourself against the person they look up to, not you proving your stand and them defending their position. That is why it's very difficult. We argue against people who defend their mentors or their leaders' perspective. So you are arguing with somebody who is defending their mentor's perspective. You're arguing with somebody who is defending their pastor's perspective. You're arguing with somebody who's defending their church's perspective. So it's you against that person and everybody else who they look up to, or everybody else who they represent. So not so many people have a stand, not so many people have an individual position that they can be able to stand and defend. Most of the people defend the groups that they represent. They defend the leader that they look up to. They defend somebody who mentors them. So when you prove your point against them, when you prove your point against whatever it is they claim to stand for, when you have all the facts to defend your position and they cannot, they turn onto being like, you cannot be better than so and so, who they represent or who in their eyes is better. Though the person who held that position initially had enough points to approve or to defend that position, but whoever you're arguing with cannot. So most of the time we are arguing with somebody who is defending a specific group. They cannot defend that position. Somebody who has taken a particular specific angle of someone else's argument. You've listened to someone's 2 minutes of a 2-hour lecture, and so you defend the 2 minutes of the 2-hour lecture because you listened to a part that excites you. You've listened to a part that makes you feel good about yourself. You've listened to a part that approves of what you do, even if it's wrong. And so they come to you with the 2 minutes of the 2-hour lecture and they defend those 2 minutes because it makes them excited in that particular instant. Not everybody can be able to comfortably defend their position. Not everybody can be able to authentically say that this is what I stand for and this is what I mean. Not everybody can be able to say that although this is the stand I took yesterday, but today I think I was wrong. Remember, we have perspectives today because the data that is available today can defend the positions that we hold, and so we go by those facts, we go by those experiences which have been put into figures. But tomorrow when you have facts and figures which contradict the information we had yesterday, then we take the position that helps us see a better projection, see a better tomorrow based on the data that will be available. There's a position that people had 100 years ago that they do not now, because now we have data that can be able to defend the position that we have. We have data that can be able to explain why things are the way they are. And tomorrow when things change, that is the position we'll be able to take as well. We go depending on the data that is available, not necessarily depending on the emotions that we hold at a particular time. So don't be afraid to say that yesterday I held a position and I was wrong yesterday. Don't be afraid to say that yesterday I took a stand and I was wrong about it, because we're afraid that if I say that I was wrong yesterday, tomorrow whenever I want to argue a particular position, you will remind me that yesterday you were wrong about this, so there's no way you are right about it again. So that's why people have to constantly defend a lie that they had. They have to constantly defend a position that they had, even if that position is wrong. Or better still, if I want to argue out my point tomorrow, you'll always tie me down to when I was wrong. You won't argue the facts of a particular case or the facts of a particular incident. You'll always remind me about when I was wrong, and thus I'm not qualified to argue with you on a current situation because yesterday I was wrong on a particular subject. Remember, people argue based on the data that is available to them, and as such, we expose ourselves to data that is in line with what position we stand or some of the beliefs that we have at a particular time. So I will only have data in a limited quantity, in a limited space, because the data that I have supports the stand that I have. Not most of us can be able to honestly say that I was wrong and thus I'm willing to change my position. Not all of us can confidently say that this person I supported, but then it turns out to be wrong. Be able to honestly take a position, take a stand. When it's wrong, you admit it's wrong, because the data that you had gave you a position that today has been disapproved. Be okay with saying you're wrong. Be okay with admitting to your mistakes, because you're a person, and as such, we live in the present. If your present has facts that supports the position that you hold, then stick with it. If your present has facts that disapproves of everything that was said yesterday, don't be afraid to correct somebody who was wrong yesterday. But most of all, you being able to stand and admit to yourself that you are wrong helps you to objectively look at a particular subject, look at a particular person, and engage honestly. Not because you need the support, but because you are able to look at the bigger picture, not just what your position is in the picture. Blessings.